good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, to all of you from all around the world. My name is Annette de Graaf, and I am the host of the 100 Connected podcast. And today I am joined by the best psychics one could wish for, Hanneke Mackie from Baskins in South Africa. Hello, Hanneke.
Hi.
And we have Sherelle Druppers in Kenya, Chesa in Kenya. Hello, Sherelle.
Hi, everyone.
And we have Lindsay Stewart from Sweet Tree Arts in the US. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello.
Today we have with us our wonderful guest, all the way from Norway, Siri Abrahamsen. And Siri is an inspirational speaker, an author, edupreneur who brings empathy, kindness, meaningful communication, and mindset awareness into everyday lives of children and adults. And she's the founder of Gleding. Am I pronouncing that correct in Norwegian?
Perfect.
A movement that promotes social emotional learning, gratitude, human connection, inspiring people to build relationships rooted in understanding and joy. And Siri and I have something in common. We both call Norway our home. Siri is Norwegian and I moved here. But living here in Norway, I have experienced the impact that Gleding brings here in Norway firsthand. And that is something really special because every single parent and educator that I speak with here in Norway knows Siri and knows Gleding. Maybe if you're not in Norway, and if you don't speak with parents and educators here, you don't feel that impact. But I do, and that's it's magical. It's really, really special. So this morning, I even told somebody I'm going to talk to Siri Abrahamsen today, and they're like, "Hey, so exciting!" And that's every time I bring up your name. So you must have done something
Wonderful thing to be able to be an influencer and a leader and kind of quote unquote famous for something so important as education influence. But it's lovely to meet you, Siri, and so inspiring what you do.
For everybody outside of Norway who might not know Gleding yet, who might not know Siri yet. Could you please tell us the story of Gleding?
Wow. You almost got me in tears here. This is so wonderful for me to hear, and I'm almost blushing a bit. So the story, it's quite long actually, but I'll take the headlines here. And I grew up myself I didn't really feel that Norway was my home, to be honest. So it was interesting when you said that because I've never identified as a Norwegian, first and foremost. I've always felt like I don't know where I belong. I just know that I connect with some people and with others I find it difficult. And I thought the school was very rigid. It was very difficult for me to kind of feel that I had something to give and that I fitted into that system. I also didn't connect well with people my age. I always tried to stretch to be with the people who were older than me, maybe also because I'm the youngest sister and I always admired my older sisters. So for me, all the school years felt really difficult. And that's why I started sports and I went all into becoming a better tennis player. But I've always followed these topics around loneliness, around bullying. And I've seen that there's so many initiatives that are like anti-bullying. And I found it, of course, very important to be trying to really fight bullying. But at the same time, I was curious about, but what's the opposite? You know, when there's not bullying, what is present? Where does compassion come in? Empathy, understanding, curiosity, and those kind of skills, and also those kind of attitudes. And I was sitting with my children, we were having dinner, and this was in 2015, before school was about to start after the summer holidays. And I asked them, you know, what's the opposite of bullying? And then the 9-year-old, which was then, he was very engaged in this conversation. And he said, then we need to do something good for others. And we started discussing, well, what's that? And how does that look? And then the other brother said, and then we should do to others what we would like them to do to us. And he had learned that at school. And then the other brother said, but it's not necessarily what makes you happy. It's also what makes me happy. So maybe we have to try to figure out what's important to people. And then he says, and then we can ask them if they are doing gleding instead of bullying. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool word. I have to and really explain what happened in that moment. But I just felt this, there's something in that word. I just have to grab it. And then just a few days after, I contacted an illustrator. And 6 months after that, I had the Gleding book in my hand. And I just knew that there's something about this that I have to bring out. And just before that, I had been working with organizational development and leadership. And I thought that, I can do much better contribution to society if I work with education and children, because we know the importance of the 5 first years of life and early childhood. So that's how it all started. And that's 10 years ago now. Now it's like a whole universe, which is, it's just lovely to work with it. And there's another book. That's actually book number 5 or something. Yeah. So I sold 60,000 of those in Norway with a population of 5 million. So that's pretty good. And it's all been spreading organically. And the feedback we get is that it's so nice to work with something that is like focused on what we want to achieve, what we want to see, what we want to build, instead of focusing so much on the things we don't want, because it's really hard work to be in this negative space at all times. So it's not a happy-go-lucky movement. It's not like we're trying to say that life is easy or everyone should go around and being happy all the time. That's not the point. The point is to find strategies and social supports and having the skills to deal with life, whatever it is in your day, whatever happens.
Thank you, Siri, for that. I just wanted to jump in because we work all in very different contexts, and I work here in Kenya. My co-founder is Kenyan. And the interesting thing is whatever you're saying, we actually say as well. So we work with social and emotional learning through dance. And one thing is that in the informal settlements, we cannot take away the poverty. We're not taking away all the challenges. And for us, it was really about how can we build kids to navigate their environment. And something that I wrote down when you talked is that this is a human quality, right? This is not just for the kids in Norway or the kids in your hometown. This is actually something that as humans connects us. And so I wanted to just share with you that whatever geography or context we're at, we all need this. How do you see the future of Gleding in terms of this reaching more children in different contexts and in different geographies?
Yeah, thanks. I've been giving this a lot of thought, and what I started to say by not feeling, first and foremost Norwegian, I think that's been like a value for me, that we are not first and foremost the state we're in. I find it so strange how we always could, where are you from? Where are you from? Like, is that really that important? It's like, who are you? What's important to you? So building on that, what I'm trying to say is that this gives me so much meaning, because I know that when we connect on a deeper level, we are also similar. And everyone loves their children. Everyone is trying to do the best they can with what they have. People just want to have a life where they can contribute to something important and where they have someone to love and someone who loves them. I think it's very basic. And I feel that sometimes we are kind of forgetting the most fundamental stuff in life. So when I've been writing the books, and I have a dream also about a digital universe with animations, and we have the characters, and I've always tried to have in mind, how can this be as universal as possible, work in different contexts, and like that also bring us together. So I think that there's been some Scandinavian words that have been shared around the world. Like we have also different words from, Japan with ikigai, or we have ubuntu, or we have, I really enjoy when we learn some common phrases or common words that we all can share. And I would say that would be like my ultimate dream, is that everyone knows what Gleding is, because it's just about being kind, trying to understand where people are coming from, what are their perspectives, and really building bridges. And also building bridges between generations as well. I think many societies today have lost that. We have lost the meeting places between the young ones and the old ones. And I just really want to connect us. I'm trying to get the books out. And now with what we are building digitally, everyone who has access to internet, hopefully will be able to download our free parenting app, which is now in Norwegian, but we're also building it in English. And then we will add on multiple languages. So really trying to work for scale here. Yeah.
Siri, I wanted to say that I think it's so great that you're thinking about translation and getting this beautiful program out into the world. I also really resonated with your story about capturing the name Gleding for your organization. It made me emotional. My organization is called Buzz, and it also, for me, it's that word that vibrates and shakes and moves and kind of speaks to that, like the thing that happens. And really, I feel like we're kindred spirits, as Cheryl said, in that we're using different modalities to kind of fight the same bully, the same monster. And in our case, we use the arts to help bolster those social skills and the confidence and communication skills and the 21st century competencies of the child. So I'm just interested, my question to you is to find out a bit more about, other than the books, I saw online that there are other platforms and things and tools that you're making available. If we can go and just dig into that a little bit, because I'd love to know what else you guys are using to bring the positive, as you say, as opposed to fighting against what's not working. It's providing a tool and a solution.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so basically I've just been observing what's available, what's used, what are the needs, and we've also been, because I've been traveling to hundreds of schools and being there physically, showing up, and I tried to just learn as much as possible from both parents and professionals. So what I've figured is that there is a hole here because a lot of programs are targeted schools and they work primarily towards the children. Like, children need to learn to be nice. Children need to learn to be kind. And I don't believe in that way of working at all. I really believe that children are amazing. They're the best human beings around. And if they are in an environment where they get to play, show their strengths, build on their curiosity, their interest, and if they feel safe, they show, they are empathetic and they care. And if they are shown love, they will love all of this. So my perspective is really about building the grown-ups surrounding the children. So the platforms are, yes, we have a lot of things for the children, mostly storytelling, mostly creative ways to practice pro-social behavior and learning about emotions and all of that. But it's not like, do this, be kind. It's more, I want them to feel seen. I want them, when they use Gleding, that they feel, I'm not alone in this world. There are many people who feel the same things as me. I can ask for help, all of that. And then with the platform, like I said, it's targeted, yes, a bit to the children, but mostly we're working with the professionals, meaning all kinds of teachers and adult people working with children, and also parents. And I'm trying to bridge the collaboration between parents and professionals, because I really believe in building the team. I also used a bit like the children's team. We have the same goal. We want our children to be well and do well and have a high quality of life. And for that to happen, they need a great group of adults surrounding them. So we have a yearly wheel with the 2 topics per month. We have question and answers. We have trainings to train your social skills, or I like to think of it as Duolingo, but Duolingo to understand children's language. So it's like we really want to have a place where you can practice, repair, practice validation, practice playing. I didn't play much when I was a child. Like I said, I always stretched towards my older siblings, and my home was loving, but it wasn't playful. We were having conversations and discussing matters, but we didn't play a lot. So when I became a mother, I knew that my strength in playing isn't great because I haven't been practicing it. So that's where we also want the self-awareness amongst the adults to see, which skills do I need to strengthen to be able to be a good grown-up for the children? So that's basically the essence of the platforms. And kindergartens can subscribe, schools can subscribe, and the parenting app is free. So that's kind of the system around it. And then there's the books.
You've got all the stakeholders around the child involved. I love that.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Can I hop in and take a moment to honor the journey of motherhood and sitting in the room with all of us, and also knowing how many mothers may be out there listening? I'm inspired by all of your stories, but also really interested in elevating the power of women who have that incredible bond with a child, and how it's back to what you were saying, Siri. It's that we've always known this, but it's such a simple thing. That connection that between mother and child is something that for all of humankind, people have understood, and we've sort of put it to the side. It's not to say other caregivers aren't incredibly important. Absolutely. It's the bond between a child and a caregiver that allows a child to thrive. And there is something that I think we need to really honor about the mother and child relationship. So I just want to kind of say that without any way offending fathers or grandparents or all the incredible supports that are necessary for a child to thrive. Because here's what I see: these incredible mothers making change because they've centered their child, and whether they're fighting for climate action or they're shifting education, the mother bear kind of comes out. So I just want to say thank you to all mothers who work endlessly to do this work.
And even the mothers who are fathers, the fathers who mother, right? Those who are, the mother as the verb.
Be a broader context. I don't have any problem, and there's no offense to anyone in that, but I just want us to think about it a little bit more.
And coming from a mother here, I'm a mother of 2 young children, and you've built this incredible platform with caregivers and parents. But in this world where mothers sometimes are struggling, or parents, and we're tired and we're not always as emotionally stable as we would like to be, what is one of the parenting tips that you have for parents out there? It's like something that they can do, and of course they should go through your courses, but it's like what advice would you give parents in this day and age to cope with everything that they are dealing with and providing for their child?
That's a good question. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have like a baby in my belly right now that's coming in April. So it's like when you talk about it, I get very emotional because he's like kicking in there, and I have 3 more and I have a bonus. So I will have 5 children altogether, which...
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So I know and the bond, of course, is very special. And we know the importance of the first 2 months, and also how much this little one is already sensing of how I'm doing. It's quite fascinating what we know from the baby being not even born yet. So that's fascinating. And I've been a mother 50% of my life since I was 20. So I think I've just learned so much, and I feel that it's difficult to give a general advice because it's a very vulnerable thing. I think maybe the most important is not to get lost in the enormous amount of information we have access to, and really work on trusting yourself and what feels right, and really listening to that, because we have learned so many strange things coming from the 18th century where a man decided that you should let children cry until they fall asleep because that's how they learn not to be spoiled. This came from a war doctor in 1776 or something. It's a crazy book that should never have been published, right? There's been so many strange advice coming that are disconnecting us from our children, which is the worst thing. I think we have to really connect to ourselves and trust that we've been doing this for thousands of years. We have the love. We are good enough. Like Donald Winnicott also is talking about the good enough parenting. And of course, for me, this is my main interest. So I always want to develop and learn about myself. But I think it's super important to know that this is a natural thing. You're born to do this, and trust your own voice, and don't make it too complicated. And also, when it feels difficult for us, we should listen to that, because when the baby is crying, you can feel how painful that is. You really want to soothe that child. And that's because you're supposed to, right? And then I really believe it's about just being curious about what's happening to me in this situation when it becomes difficult. Like, what's my need right now when I'm not able to be there for my child? Can I get that support somewhere? Can I look into that? Can I get some help with that? Because this situation is difficult for me. The minute we start blaming the child or we start having a power battle with the child, we are in the wrong place, right? So it's like that should not be needed. It's not a battle of power. It's about finding the connection again. So just remembering that my belief is that people are good. That's like my fundamental belief. And children are good. No one's born nice or mean or evil. I don't believe in that. I believe we're all born good. And that's like my framework. And then when it becomes difficult, I have to remember that I'm a good person and this is a good person. And now we have to try to connect again.
It's so soothing.
So of course I could talk about this topic forever.
But this is great advice, because usually we get lost in you have to do this as a parent, and that it can feel very lonely if that doesn't work out. And also, like you said, we live in a world where we're not always connected to our community, and we have to do it alone. And then it's extremely hard to go back to yourself and understand, how am I doing this? Because you don't always have the support that you need. And so I think you give a lot of grace in your answers to parents that have grace for yourself in these journeys. I think that's great advice. I'm a little bit more centered after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherelle.
I would love to ask too about how self-compassion might be a part of your work.
Yeah, of course, it's really crucial and it's difficult sometimes. And I would say I've been reading about all these topics for so many years and really trying to understand and learn. And still there are times when I'm thinking, Siri, what are you doing? You know, this was not how you wanted to be in that situation. And still you're just behaving like a weirdo. And I can be like really judgmental towards myself, especially around now it was for the Christmas or the holidays in December. It was so difficult because it was just complete chaos at home. And I knew it was going to be like that. And I had assumptions about it, and I tried to prepare and I tried to follow all the, recipes for staying calm, let it go, accept. And I just didn't manage. I was like, I'm a terrible person right now. I feel sorry for my family, And then I thought, okay, Siri, it's okay. It's okay. You're actually tired. You're tired. You just need to rest. And I thought, I'm actually going to practice this self-compassion right now, because if I start judging myself, that will just come out as judging the others as well. And it won't work. But I find that sometimes self-compassion is very difficult for me to access, because I want to have these high standards for myself. But I think it's really about observing what's going on now and what do I really need. And then when I see that, okay, of course, I've been pushing myself too much now, or I have too high expectations of what I'm able to cope with, and now I just need a break. And that usually works. Just like we know never to give timeouts to the children, but we can give ourselves a timeout. I think that's a good advice sometimes.
Didn't you call it self-gleding?
Yeah, it's the opposite of self-harm, right?
All of these things that has come up around compassion for the self, connection to the child, self-gleding. For me, it connects so beautifully to the purpose of this podcast. We have thought about its mission and about being 100 connected minds for human connection, human flourishing, and based in people doing work in education. And so all these topics that have naturally come up just really, for me, resonate with this purpose. And brings me to just my final question about, we've asked you a couple of questions that's almost difficult to put into words in terms of how do you connect to self, or how do you, do this gleding thing, because there's a lot of it that we don't want to be too prescriptive around. But I noticed that you also do empathy training. And I think all of that really speaks back to connection to self, connection to others. And what came up for me in the HundrED conference was that human connection is so required for education to take place and therefore human flourishing. And when we have empathy, we really build connection, right? And I guess this is that sort of, there's always going to be mystery around it. We're not going to have a recipe for it. But as far as there might be a recipe for empathy training, what do you do in terms of that work in empathy training?
Yeah, it's a lovely question. And there's a few places I can go now, but what comes top of mind is that I really believe in storytelling and I really believe in sharing vulnerability. And what I've seen, even when I felt different and lonely, is that when I share things that matter to me, events that has had a big impact on me, I'm never alone. So it's like it's empathy training for me to see that others can actually understand me. So empathy, we always think about the others, right? It's always about, how can I feel with? But actually also knowing that other people can feel with me was kind of like an interesting observation for me, because I believe, and this is something also Brene Brown has said a lot, that if you go around in the world and you're looking for the fact that you don't belong, you will always find evidence of that. But if you change that mindset to look for evidence that you do belong and that you are part of this common big group of human family, then you will find evidence for that. And I think that's kind of important for empathy, is knowing that the more you share your humanity, the more you will connect with others. And the deeper you understand yourself and why you have become the person you are today, it's much easier to understand others as well. So it's really about being curious towards oneself, and that builds safety as well, because things start to make sense. And then when we feel safe, it's much easier to be curious instead of being defensive or feeling threatened that people are different than us. We can feel that, cool, we are similar in many aspects. And we also see things differently. What a great complexity to accept and even find fascinating. And empathy training is also to be even more practical when it comes, for example, to the way I talk to my children. It's if something has happened that they tell me about, I will meet them where they are and show that I care about their experience, but I will always ask, so what happened before that? Or how is that child doing? Does that child have many friends? I will show the fact that I care about that other child too, or that other group, those other groups of people, so that my children see that my mom is always thinking about the group, not just me. And I think that's very important to kind of lay foundations for empathy training, is just to show curiosity about the whole ecosystem, and that there's never just one answer. There's always a complex story about what really happened.
In this book, so when we talk about like the conversations you have with your child, and this book, Failing, well, can we translate it to failing or?
Yeah, failing or failure. Yeah.
So in this book, there's like this little conversation about like a mom asking a question, like, how was your day? And then the children actually asked the mom the question, so which mistake did you make, mom? And that is what I was thinking about, like, that is so beautiful that you bring that up. That is such a nice way to have a conversation with your children. So when you show your children exactly, when you're modeling, like you explained before, when you're modeling being curious about the whole ecosystem, what happened before, but also sharing your own insecurities with children. If you're an educator, if you're a parent, we are human beings too. And the way we approach mistakes, when we make mistakes, when we say something we regret, when we share that with our children. I love that you're sharing that in your book.
I want to also just take a moment, as another one in the room that's passionate about creativity, I wanted to ask Siri, I think the thing that rises to the surface about how a creative practice has supported my own journey as an educator or as a human being is that thing that you started to mention, this idea of multiple truths. I do think that that's something is deeply ingrained within a perspective that really honors creativity. Recently, it was St. Bridget's Day in Ireland, February 1st. And what she represents is exactly this, is the multiple truths and the yes and thinking. And thinking about how, again, that both knowing of the complexities and living side by side, you can be sad and you can be joyful at the same time. And I think that that's something that I feel very, very grateful to have in my life. And I know that that comes from a creative practice. And I'm wondering about the piece of creativity that you talk a lot about too, Siri.
I just have to think a bit. I mean, the yes and I also find as a good method for creativity, actually, to just build on ideas and do the yes and instead of the yes but. And I also believe, I mean, if we look at our world, how different it would be if we could think yes and, right? If we could hold multiple truths at the same time. And I believe that requires quite a lot of confidence and inner peace to be able to do that, because our minds want to simplify and we want to have easy answers when we feel threatened or when we're not in balance. So I'm thinking that creativity is coming from a safe place. It's, it's the playfulness. It's a place where you can go when you do feel safe. When you are threatened, it's very difficult to be creative. And children, somehow they manage to express themselves in very creative ways. And for some reason, the industrial world has kind of prioritized the one truth, the one answer. That's the patriarchy, basically, and like the competition, the harshness. This is it, and no need to mention presidents and people around the world today that are completely focused on one truth, right? You're either with me or against me. So this is basically what we're working to heal, because it's just crazy how it has turned out. And there's no space for creativity where this harshness is thriving. So I also believe that a lot of parents can think of that it's not either or. Your child doesn't have to fit into this shape. Your child is not coming into the world like something you should shape into something. Your role or the grown-up's role is really to help the child see itself and grow into what it already is. It's not like becoming something. And I find that sometimes we have these very rigid ideas about what's normal, what's not normal, what needs the diagnosis. We have to think much wider about this to make room for all the creativity we're born with, and also to create societies where we thrive. For all children to flourish, that involves a lot of yes and a lot of multiple truths. And I think for us to start with that on like a big scale, it's really up to us to find, work for our own inner peace, be less reactive, breathe, observe, accept.
You already shared a lot of like your dreams. I think this conversation has been very inspiring, and I think I needed this today, and I think a lot of people that will listen to this think I needed this. We always have a final question. We ask, what is your dream for education? We want to put that to you as the final question.
Oh, wow. I remember there was a painting about that we created in the HundrED summit of like, what's the dream here? And when you say those words, I just see like rainbows and trees and playfulness out there. For me, it's not about a building or a room or a whiteboard, it's what I see is just, freedom and joy and diversity in a great mix. All kinds of ages come together to spark curiosity, where we learn from creating projects that serve the world. I don't understand the purpose of taking the power away from our children and letting them believe that they have to become something to contribute. That's just weird. They are already something and they already contribute. And I really believe that education should be about contribution and finding your skills and finding your strengths that you love to do. And when we let people do what they love, the results will be amazing. So I kind of want to tear everything down of what we have built, take the best things and just find how can we create joyful days for our children where they get to contribute and also where they get frustration and they get challenges, but it's meaningful challenges. That's what they need. They need something that gives them a sense of purpose. And I guess that's my dream.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much. And you made this all a really nice, safe space to share. And I'm so happy you're having these conversations. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Do you have an education innovation you want to share with the world? The call for the 2026 Global Collection is now open. Apply at HundrED.org.